It's now almost a week since those first reports began to emerge from the Ireland World Cup training camp in Saipan. Captain Roy Keane, perhaps the world's greatest midfield player, certainly the player most responsible for Ireland's qualification for the World Cup finals, was threatening to abandon the side at the very moment he was needed most. Angry over what he regarded as poor preparation by the Ireland management, Keane was nevertheless persuaded to come back on board, but he publicised his frustration in a series of media interviews. Manager Mick McCarthy summoned his rebellious captain to a squad meeting. Harsh words were exchanged. McCarthy, believing his authority as manager was being undermined, decided to send Keane home. This evening, in his first major television interview since his dismissal, Roy Keane speaks about the events which led to his departure from Ireland's World Cup squad, how the controversy has affected him, and whether there's any possibility of him playing for Ireland in Japan. He spoke this afternoon to Tommy Gorman.
What I first want to do is to get you to put in context the reasons for your row. Was it bad blood between you and Mick McCarthy? Was it something deeper? Or was it because you were unhappy with the preparations of the Irish team for the World Cup and you always strive for perfection?
I think there's a lot of things. Obviously there's a lot been said over the last few days. I'm not really here to get anybody on my side. I think it's important that people know the truth. The final straw was when I was accused of being disloyal, faking injury and going against my teammates in front of everybody, and I wouldn't accept it, and I still don't accept that.
That, Roy, was the final straw, but what happened before that? Because the impression we have is of somebody who went over there, was looking to train hard, was looking to prepare for the World Cup, wanted to do well in the World Cup, and just felt that the training just wasn't going well. Is that the case?
Yeah, well, from day one when we got over there, again, the travelling was long, but you know, you accept these things, don't get me wrong. And the first night we got there, there was an evening meal, and Mick got Martin, the doctor, to speak about certain things, you know, to be careful of the sun and sunblock, of course, and what drinks to drink. And when he was talking about the drinks to take, he went, they're not here yet, and he continued, and I was sitting there and I thought, they're not here yet. And then Mick came back in, and Mick said about the training kit hadn't arrived, and the training pitch wasn't as good as he thought. And as soon as Mick said that, I thought it must be bad. And there was no balls, of course, and he felt DHL had let him down. They should have been there on Thursday or Friday or something. I think this was on the Saturday evening when we got there, or the Sunday evening. And I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't. That's not being prima donna. It's not being pig-headed. That's just being honest. You know, we're preparing for the World Cup finals, and I was disappointed straight away with that. And again, I remember we walked outside. There was a few players. There was a bit of a laugh and a joke about it. But I went to my bedroom. I couldn't understand it. I couldn't. So I went to Mick's room that night, about half an hour later, and I asked him, I said, Mick, what's going on? I can't believe it. He says, well, you know, the skips should have been here Thursday or Friday. And I said, they should have been here 2 weeks ago. They should have been here 2 weeks ago, so there wouldn't have been any doubt. And I said, the training pitch must be bad. If you said it's bad, he went, oh, well, somebody let me down. They promised me a decent training pitch. And I went, what, you've trusted somebody that you're going to guarantee a training pitch when there's not even a football pitch in the island? And I says, I'm disappointed with it. And I left it at that. And he understood my feelings, because I had the same problem a few years ago when, you know, after a couple of years when Mick was the manager, I was disappointed with certain things. And I arranged to meet Mick. He came to my house and we discussed all these things, and he agreed with me that we need to improve in all aspects, preparing for a game, whether it be travel arrangements, training pitch, everything. And this was the first day we got there, and I thought, if this is the way it's going to go, what chance have we got? And of course the next morning we were ready to go train. There's no point bringing any boots because there was no footballs. There was no training kit. We had to wear the casual gear. We were around the hotel. And even I went up for a stretch in the physio's room, and a lot of the medical care wasn't there. And some of the lads couldn't have strap-ins. And again, it was a laugh and a joke, and I have a laugh and a joke. You know, it's quite funny sometimes. But even the lads had no strap-ins, and I remember Jason Mackett there saying, "No, use some toilet roll." And everyone was laughing. Again, I was laughing with it, but deep down I thought, this is not right. And I was fuming, to be honest. And of course we went training, and when I got to the training ground, the pitch was a disgrace, absolute disgrace. And if anybody's been over there, if they say any different, you know, they're not in the real world. And even after training, I was talking to one of the liaison officers who was looking after the team when we got over there. I said to him, I said, well, do we have to maybe water it for us tomorrow? And he went, oh, probably. He says, to be fair, we weren't expecting you today. And I went, but you must have known we were training. He says, no, nobody told us you were coming down. And that was the start of it. And I thought, here we go. But, you know.
Did you think that you had support for that kind of approach from the other players? Because they're professionals as well. They were looking to do well in the World Cup.
All the players were saying the same. All the players were saying the same to me. That's what I think, you know, when you're captain for a reason. And I made the point to Mick on the first night. I said, it's not good enough, Mick. And the next day the players, and again, it's a bit of a laugh and a joke, and I accept that, you know. But when we got there, it was so dangerous. I said from the start, I went, there's going to be injuries here. And of course, 3 days later, there was 3 injuries. And it didn't surprise me one bit.
So, you threatened to leave, you wanted to come home, that was sorted out. And then you had this bust-up. And you were obviously very angry that you were confronted in public, as it were, in front of all the other squad members.
Yeah, without a doubt. On the Tuesday after I told Mick that I was leaving, and I did tell him for personal reasons, because I didn't really want to tell him that I'd had enough of playing for him. I really had, because when we trained on the Tuesday, again, the pitch. Anyway, again, that's the tip of the iceberg, to be fair. And I said I needed to go home. And again, that was supposed to have been a private conversation. We spoke to Eddie Cochran, who was going to organise the flights, and they promised it wouldn't go beyond the 3 of us. And an hour or 2 later, I met Alan Kelly, who said, oh, you're going home? And, you know, I thought, yeah. But of course, during the night, things were sorted out, to be fair, on that front. But I think Mick was disappointed that I'd put him in an awkward position because, to be fair, he rang Colin Healy. And I told him I felt bad about that. I said, I felt sorry for Colin. And I said, look, I'll go home. And that was my last words to Mick, you know, leave it, don't ring him back. But the first thing in the morning, Mick Byrne came to see me and he said, you know, you've got 3 minutes to make up your mind. I said, well, I'll stay. But I think in a little bit was, I think Mick was put under pressure from the FAI of some sort. That's because I was speaking to my solicitor and I spoke to Alex Ferguson during the night. And they told me to stick it out. And so from there on, I think Mick was disappointed, you know. But I felt I was entitled to change my mind. And I changed my mind an hour later to try and give Mick the chance. But he said he'd already spoke to Colin Healy 8:30 in the morning on his mobile. And I said to him, I said, by your body language, you know, you don't really want me here. And he said, no, but, you know, you've put me in an awkward position. I wish you thought about me. And I went, I feel quite embarrassed by it all anyway, you know, but I've decided to stick it out. But my last words were to him, you know, he left my room and I followed him down and knocked on the door. Mick Byrne answered the door. I said to Mick, leave and I'm going home. But of course, during the night, as I said, after speaking to 1 or 2 people, Mick Byrne came back to my room. He said, you've got 3 minutes to make your mind up. And I said, well, I'll stay. So that was that. And to be fair, on the Sunday or Monday when we got over there, I promised Tom Humphreys and Paul Kimmage, 2 reporters, you know, I'd have some sort of respect for, that I'd speak to them on the Wednesday. I wasn't due a press conference, I think, till the Friday or the Sunday with all the other press. But these 2 lads asked me and I said, yeah, I'll do it. And of course the Wednesday I told them my disappointments with things. And Thursday morning Tom Humphreys rang me in my room about 6:30, 7 in the morning. But I was awake anyway, we were all waking up quite early. And he said, I'd like to go through this piece with you because it's going to print in a few hours. And I said, okay. And I met him downstairs at 8 o'clock and I said, it's fine. No problems. And I went to print in the Times on the Thursday morning. The Thursday afternoon, you know, the storm clouds were gathering. I just knew it. Nobody had spoke to me. Even Mick Byrne, who's I've been very close to in the Irish squad, I said to him in his body language, I says, Mick, I understand you have to be loyal to Mick, you know. He said, well, I've known you in a long time, but I says, no, you need to stick with Mick type of thing, you know. And I went for my meal at 6:30 on the Thursday and I was told there was a meeting at 7:30. And I knew what it was all about. I knew.